All right, everyone, very warm welcome. Thank you for joining the webinar. I'm here today with Roman to talk about REST calls and therefore, which is such an amazing and interesting topic. It's incredibly fascinating to learn about REST calls, so I think you're going to really enjoy the webinar today. I cannot see or hear you, so if you sneeze or pick your nose, I will never know about it. But if you do have a question, you can type it into the Q&A. Just toggle your mouse over the Zoom controls and you'll be able to type your questions into the little chat box. And Roman and I will check the Q&A section periodically throughout the webinar and then answer any questions that you might have. So, my apologies. I do have a picture of Roman, but I must have added it to another version. But Roman is right here, a very valuable member of the team. Roman and I have been working together on creating new e-learning content for the past 2 years. In addition, Roman has extensive experience as a live trainer, traveling all around the world to teach people how to configure their for systems. Roman, do you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone. Enjoy this wonderful session today.
Thank you. So because we've been making all of these e-learning courses, I would be remiss not to mention that we do have an e-learning course that is specifically about the REST service. And so those of you who are involved in installing and configuring Therefore systems, this course is for you. So today's webinar will cover the use case and user experience of REST calls, and we'll show a little bit of the configuration in the backend when we do the live demo. But the focus on today's session in regards to REST is really the user experience and the sales side of things. Having said that, let's look at the overview of what this webinar will cover. So first I'll discuss what are REST calls, what are the advantages, the examples, a live demo with Roman, and then sales and discovery questions, and then we'll close up the webinar. So it should all take just under an hour, and we'll try to make it as interactive and interesting for you as possible. So in sum, REST calls are simply a communication method. So REST allows Therefore to talk to other applications or services. So Therefore can get information or send information to or from other applications. So when Therefore sends out a REST call to another application, we can ask for or receive information from that application using REST as a basis for communication. In sum, REST allows for communication. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. It's part of a set of rules that developers follow when they create their API. And so one of those rules is that you should be able to get a piece of data when you link to a specific URL. So each URL is a request, and the data sent back to you is the response. So in sum, we are using REST calls every day when we open up a website. So and therefore we can initiate a REST call using a workflow task. The workflow task will then start the communication with another application. And then that information is sent back to Therefore as part of the workflow. So what kind of services or applications are we talking about? Really any type of service or application that has REST enabled. We do get the question oftentimes, does Therefore support SOAP, which is another communication protocol? And the answer is no, it's only REST. So you can use the REST call to send or receive information from a third-party app or service like SAP or Google Cloud, Dynamics Nav, and then you get that information back into your Therefore system. There are 5 different methods that are supported with REST from Therefore, and that is GET, which will get a resource from a server, which is like a read function. POST, which creates a new resource on a server. It's like a creating function. PUT and PATCH, which is like update the information on the server, and then delete, which will delete the resource from a server. Now, of course, it's important to mention that not all of these methods will be supported every time. The type of method that you're using will depend on the documentation of the service that you're connecting to. So when you first think about a REST call that you're going to make, you think about what do you want to achieve, then you look at the documentation of that app or service, and the documentation will then tell you which one of these you have to select. So for example, if you want to get information on a distance or a geographic location, you could do that using Google. So you could definitely get information, but of course, Google will not let you delete information from their server. So you always have to be sure that if you're a technician, that you read the documentation carefully to ensure that you are using a method that is correct. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the call. So there are two different types of REST calls that Therefore can do. You can do internal REST calls. So this is an internal call from some part of Therefore to another function within Therefore. So you can check information. You could use a REST call to see if information is already available in a different category, update information, add a new keyword dictionary, for example. You could also delete information from another specific category in Therefore. And then external, this is getting or posting information to or from a third-party service or app. That would be like Google Vision or flight times from an airport, something like that. And in the end, what you really end up with is you end up with a REST workflow. And this is an example of what the REST workflow looks like. It's just a workflow task here where you're getting the information or sending the information, and then the workflow ends. Of course, you can use this workflow task in very complicated workflows as well, but for demonstration purposes, I've kept the workflow here extremely simple. And what you see then here is that you are mapping the fields in the category to the content from that third-party app or service. And then you have all of the information here where you can specify the parameters and authorize, which Roman will also show a little bit during the demonstration. So in the end, what's really important is that the REST workflow task is just a regular workflow task that you can drag and drop onto the workflow pane, just like any other workflow task. And it functions within the parameters of a workflow. So as soon as a user initiates the workflow, that task will be executed. So what are the advantages of using REST? And it's just amazing. The first thing, it's automatic. So it's a really automatic way to get or update information. There's no manual user intervention involved. It's modern, so this means it's supported by very many apps and services nowadays, and it's very easy to set up. So you can have really great improvements in your efficiency with using very simple REST calls. So REST calls can be extremely simple, but they can have a profound impact on the quality of the work and the ease at which you're getting that information. So in sum, you can say REST calls add value to a Therefore system. What are some examples of a REST call? So the first one is, of course, getting data from an ERP system to Therefore, or vice versa, sending data from Therefore to the ERP system. So you could have like a workflow in Therefore where you validate the invoices and say, are they ready to be paid or not? And as soon as the invoice is ready to be paid, you can send that data from Therefore to the ERP system where the payment can be made. And so you no longer have to manually copy and paste information from Therefore to the ERP system. It's all done instantly with the REST call. Another one is currency conversion. I know a lot of businesses out there get invoices in different currencies, but of course they need to report in a single currency. And so having a REST call for currency conversion is a really good way to make sure that your currency exchange rates are timely and correct. You can imagine it takes a lot of time to manually open up a website and copy and paste the exchange rates or get the currency exchange rate copy and pasted. So by doing a REST call, it's just instantaneous. You can literally take an invoice from Therefore and then have the currency exchange rate be done instantaneously without any user intervention at all. So, and there's a lot of really free, easy to use currency exchange rate apps out there. So this is a really good use case. We'll be showing you this. You can also send an SMS, take the data that's in Therefore, and when you have a customer wanting a follow-up on their order or anything like that, you could automatically send them a SMS to let them know that their order has been placed. But you do need a third-party service to do that, but that would also be possible with a REST call. You can also get an airline or flight information. A lot of airports nowadays have their flight information online, and you can easily build a REST call so that you can keep track of, when flights are arriving or destinations, anything like that. Since our new release and with Therefore 2023, REST has also been enhanced. We can now send actual documents that are in Therefore to that third-party service. So this allows you to send the actual documents from the Therefore server to that third-party service, like an ERP or CRM system. Or you could also save documents to Therefore and then send them to Google Vision for recognition. We will be showing this in our demonstration. So it's very powerful. And finally, you can do Therefore magic with internal REST calls. So internal REST calls allow you to use the REST call to update or check information from one component in Therefore to another. So you could create a keyword, you could take a long list of Excel words and automatically feed them into Therefore as keywords using a REST call. You can also delete information in Therefore, or at least mark it for deletion, or anything else. We have a huge library of REST calls that are available, and you can use that to kind of increase efficiency within your Therefore system. So in the end, the takeaway message that I hope that you're getting is that REST is truly endless. The possibilities are just incredible to think about, and there is a REST call that can help almost any business. The limit does not exist. And that's really part of the appeal. So having given you this really brief introduction to what REST is and the possibilities of REST, I'd like to hand over to Roman, who's now going to do a live demo and show you several examples of how REST works and what the user experience is like. So I'll stop sharing and I'll hand it over to Roman.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for this excellent explanation on the REST call service tasks. So we prepared, I guess that you see my screen, and as this is not a technical training, our focus, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, will be on the end user experience. So we have our e-learning course dedicated to this subject, and the examples that you are going to see today will be available also on the e-learning. Some of them are already there. If you went through the course, you will find them, but some are completely new ones, will be presented here for the first time, and we will update also our e-learning course. So you will find all the necessary configuration steps and sample documents as well. So we prepared for this session 4 examples. Jennifer mentioned already some of them. So we will have a currency converter as a first example. The second one will show you how you can send the information from Therefore, including a document. In this case, invoice will be invoice data plus document itself will be sent to the QuickBooks accounting system. Third example will show you how you can use our Therefore web API for some internal calls, some operations such as document deletion, creation of the new keywords, and etc. Can be used that way. And as a last example, we will see also some new things that are available in the latest on-prem and online Therefore version. So how document can be sent to third-party apps or services. What you are currently see on my screen. So as I said, the first example, in first example, we will use one freely available API service called Exchange Generate. And as also Jennifer mentioned a couple of times, you will find all the necessary details on how you should configure call REST task in therefore by reading the documentation available on the provider's web page. In this case, I will just open now the navigator, and here we have one simple category where we want to convert, let's say, amounts from euro to US dollars. And I will just create quickly a new document. As you can see, very simple category where I can enter some amount, for instance, 300 euros. We would like to convert into the US dollars. So basically, as you can see, I can select the base currency and destination one. And then as a result, the API service that we are calling as a response should send us the exchange rate. So the exchange rate should be automatically populated here. Of course, also the converted amount can be updated as well. But in this case, we are just updating the exchange rate. And this is basically functionality that is available on the therefore side, where you can use the calculated field. So basically calculation can be performed by, amount can be multiplied by the exchange rate. So if I leave this empty, you see, and if I save document, if I immediately perform a search on this file, you see in the hit list immediately that there are some values already updated. So this kind of magic happened in a matter of seconds, and you get the requested result. So you can see the exchange rate was automatically populated, and then the converted amount also automatically calculated and updated here in this index field. So very good service, freely available, and basically can be used in real life examples. Even, if you are using some solution to scan your documents, like a smart capture or similar ones, the information can be extracted during the scanning operation, and you can also do these calls if you need maybe to get the latest exchange rate. So this is basically the end user side, and how this was configured, a little bit of this in Solution Designer. So basically, here is a simple task. As you know, in therefore we have under the automatic group of tasks that special automatic task called REST service. And if I open that task, then let's say the wizard will guide you through the several tabs so that you can configure the solution that you need. In this case, as a first step, basically you need to create a new request. I will not do this time. I will just open what was already created. So basically this is the dialog that would appear, where you should just give it a name for this. And then, as Jennifer mentioned, the method that should be called. In this case, because we would like to get something, in this case, exchange rate from that API service, we will use the get method. And then here is the base URL to call this web service. And this is the method that will send you back the latest exchange rate. All this information, as I said, can be found on the web page of the API service. So if I click on the API documentation, you can see very easily, you can find the information about. So here we are calling the endpoint called latest rates. So you see get the latest foreign exchange reference rates. And then you see the parameters. We see that it is a get method. Here we see the base URL and also the parameters that can be sent in order to get the response from this API. So in this case, you see the base or symbols or amount. And this is basically, if I go back to my configuration dialog, you can see that those keys such as base and symbols that I found in the documentation I can use here. So this is the base currency, and this is the one for the destination. In this case, I'm using the fixed values. Of course, this can be dynamically changed, where I can pass this as a value from the index field. In my case, that was a keyword dictionary field. For the authorization here, I don't need anything because this is a free available service. In some other examples, you can also find information about what should be used there. For instance, OAuth2, or I don't know, I can authenticate myself in some of the next examples you will see by using the internal, therefore, user account. Header, also what we are accepting here. So usually we accept, of course, the JSON response document. This is a new tab, will be discussed later in some other of the examples. Body, if we need to send something to the web service, some parameters that are required in a JSON format can be specified here. And then as a response, here you have to provide the success code. Usually it's a 200 if everything is okay. If something is wrong, then you have some different codes, such as 400 and 500. Again, you can also find these details on the API documentation page. And that's a little bit of the configuration. Of course, in the end, as a result, because you have seen that we updated the exchange rate field. So when you receive the response, successful response from the API that is called, then you can basically get the values that can be used to update the information on your therefore side. In this particular case, we were exchanging euros to US dollars, and then these rates were basically sent us as a result back. Also, what you can do, if you want, there is a test button where you can test if your process is working or not. So here you need to provide one document, therefore document ID of the existing document. As you see, I already saved one, and then I received like a document ID 218. So if I place that one over here, and if I click on the start, then I can see, you know, what was the requested, which method was used. And also here, as a response, I can see the result that I got and even the rates. And this is basically what we been assigning here to this exchange rate field. So I just use a little bit more time for the first example, just to shortly show you the configuration side. In all other examples, I will again show the end user experience and maybe just mention what is new in that particular example. The second one that we would like to share with you is related to the QuickBooks ERP system. Actually, it's accounting software. And in this example, what we are going to do, we will save one invoice or bill into the therefore category, and then this should trigger a workflow, simple workflow process for accounts payable. And then that invoice, after it is approved, should be sent to the QuickBooks, the data plus the link to this therefore document. So let's do that again. I can save one new bill into the category that we prepared for you. So as you can see here, again, I will leave the bill number, this field empty, because this will be updated. This will be like an internal bill number generated by the external ERP system, in this case, QuickBooks. And then also I can select some of the values. Those values are also coming from the QuickBooks. So I have the matching vendors. So in some, let's say, more complex examples, I can even check if vendor that I'm that I would like to pass to the QuickBooks is not existing, to create that vendor first before I send the information about my bill or invoice. So I will select one vendor, and then also list of the vendors, list of these accounts and customers, all are coming from the QuickBooks. So I will select here, for instance, automobile, and then as a description, I don't know, Ford Focus, some amount, and I will select customer. And then basically when I save this should trigger a workflow. And as a result, if this was successfully created, I should see here the bill number from the QuickBooks, and total amount also should be calculated here. I will attach one document as well. And then I'm going to save this. This will trigger a workflow process. And as you can see, the bill number is still empty, and total amount, they are not updated yet. This is because in a workflow that we created here, we intentionally stopping a workflow with one manual task before we pass this information to the QuickBooks. So here, as you can see, I can open the workflow history to show you what's happening in the background. So this is like a simple accounts payable workflow process that we created for this training. And here, as I said, I'm stopping a workflow at the first task to approve the bill firstly. And then if everything is okay, the REST call will send the information to the QuickBooks. And as a result, I should get a new bill or invoice and its data saved into the QuickBooks. And let's do that. I will quickly approve the first manual task. So I can do it even without opening the document. I will just approve it. And then if I refresh this, we can see now the history again. So it seems that everything is okay now because I didn't get any error message. And if I open this, even from here, again, you can see that bill number is updated, but I can open it and show the index data dialog on the therefore side as a proof that basically communication was established between the therefore system and the QuickBooks. So as you can see, the bill number is placed here, and as well as total amount. So this was a therefore side, but let me show you a little bit of how it looks like on the QuickBooks side. So I just need to quickly log into the QuickBooks. There is a sandbox environment. So basically you have like a virtual company with different business entities such as vendors, customers, purchase orders, contracts, and so on. So this is basically the UI of the QuickBooks. And now I will just switch to the get paid and pay section. And as you can see here, as I said, different entities, vendors, bills, and so on. Our focus will be on the bills section. And if I click here, I should find in the hit list the bill that we recently saved into the therefore and sent here to the QuickBooks. So for, let's see if I, yeah, so you see date is today. We see that it's Chinese gas and oil, which was also something that we were selected here. And now I can open it. And you see the bill was created, categories automobile. And if I open it, then as a proof, I can show you the index data from therefore were passed to this system. So we see the vendor name, even we see here the line item, and the customer that was chosen over there. And as you can see also as a result, I can even attach some information here. It can be a document itself, or it can be, I don't know, some note. Also, what can be attached can be found on the providers, API providers page. In this case, what I'm doing, I'm just sending a note. So basically this bill is saved to, therefore please use this link to open it. At the moment, I couldn't find a way to make this clickable, but you can copy the URL into the web browser, and it will open the document. Document will be presented to you. In this example, actually, we are using one of the new things that are available in a latest, therefore, on-prem and online versions, which is ability. And now I will step into the configuration part. Again, I will not go into the deep technical details. That is not important for this session. So this is the process. If I open the call REST service task, you can see this is something new that is available in the latest, therefore, version. So in the previous one, you could have only one call within one single REST call task, but now it is possible to have multiple calls within a single call REST service task. And you can see as a first part, what I was doing, I was creating a bill in the QuickBooks by using the certain method. You see here, it's a post method. And also, again, in the documentation, there is an API Explorer where you can find for the create bill all the necessary details, you know, what should be used and what should be sent as a parameter and as a request body to this API. And if I go back here, I just want also to mention that authorization, also there are different types of the authorization. And again, this depends on the API provider. In this case, they are requesting the OAuth authorization code, and then you will use it over here if it's needed. Here I didn't use the document tab, where also something new in latest, therefore, version. I will save this tab for our last example, where you will see also how this can be used. But one of the new things definitely here is ability to create multiple calls within one single task. And you can see if I open another one where I'm attaching the note, so basically then I can use a touchable object, and even I can use some scripting. If you noticed what I was sending as a note there, it was a link to the document link to a therefore document on the dynamic web, for the dynamic web viewer. And basically that was I was preparing that here as a script in this let's say local variable called the final text, and then I'm sending this through a body. So you can see I'm using the touchable reference object, and then the type of the information entity that I'm using is a bill. If I want to send invoice, or I don't know, an employee, then I would use that as an object. You can see also value bill ID. So basically in this example, what I got from the first call, if you remember that the field for the bill ID was empty. So I firstly received that information, and then I'm passing that information as one of the required parameters here. So you see what I got from the previous call, I'm sending here as a value, and here as a note, I'm sending the final text that I basically generated here through the script. I don't know, Jan, did we get any questions so far? Should we make a short break if you need to give some answers so far? Or if there are no questions, I can proceed to two other examples.
The only question we got so far is it possible to set a timeout for the REST call? And he says, I think it was 10 minutes per default, but hard coded. So do you know if there's any?
Yeah, we have to double check that with
Yeah.
St. Patrick, you know, because
Any timeouts? Yeah.
sometimes they change certain things, as you stated, it was like that, but let's
Let's check.
double
Yeah.
check it with them first. Yeah.
And that was the only question. So for those of you, it's really interesting to hear what you've said. For those of you who are not technicians, I think the important thing to remember is that the user experience is so easy. It's literally just saving a document or starting a workflow like you would for any other workflow. And I know there's a lot of technical people on the call. We looked at the participant list beforehand, and I know a lot of you are technical guys or girls. And so it is, I hope that we're trying to talk to different profiles of people at the same time. So please let us know if you are interested in seeing more of the technical stuff. But continue, Roman. I think it's really interesting. And a really interesting thing about REST is that every time that you create a REST call, you're going to adapt it to the application that you're connecting with, right? And so having the experience of seeing different examples, how this was achieved, is really valuable because it gives you ideas of how you could achieve a REST call that you want. So
exactly.
Roman, please continue.
As you said, we are targeting here a different profile of people, and that's why, we don't want to make this session to be boring, but at the same time, we have to show a lot of examples, and to give you some ideas on how this can be used. So for more technical details, as I said, and as we promised, you can find, almost the step-by-step guides or videos in a few days from now on our real learning, so you can test it everything by yourself. And of course, always you can ask any question if something is not clear enough. The third example that I'm going to show it to you is the possibility to use also our therefore web API for some internal calls, let's say. Jen, I think she prepared also some slide which will support this story on how you can find this information about this API, the methods that can be used for therefore online users. As I'm using here a virtual environment, virtual machine for this presentation, I will just show you the operations that are available in my local host machine. So basically, also some of the operations that can be performed by using our therefore web API, such as, I don't know, creating a new keyword dictionary, updating something, creating a case, creating a document, deleting a document. And in this simple case, I will just show you how document can be deleted. Very often that was also requested by our community to have also a standard workflow task that we would do that operation. But you can also, of course, you have to be careful what you are doing, but that is also possible, and it's very simple for a configuration. So here, this page, basically, this is on my local machine. Jen will share the link for therefore online, but basically here, you see, I want to use maybe delete document method. I can also find here that it is a post method, and here I can also find the service that is available and the following URL link. So if I open this, then I can find even more details, what should be sent as a request to the JSON body. And I can find the example in two different, let's say, languages, XML and JSON. So we support these two ones. And in this particular case, the only information or piece of information that I should send here is a therefore document number. And this document number is one internal parameter in a workflow. So whenever you save a document, then there will be like a parameter called main workflow document ID, and you just need to assign it over there. I will show it to you real quick. And then you see the following is an example response JSON body, so you will not get anything. So document will be just deleted. There won't be any, let's say, value that you will receive in return. So if I open now again the navigator, I will firstly save one document into the category that we are calling here delete document. So I will just save a new file. And you know, this is a very simple category consisting of only one field where file name was picked up from the file. And if I save this, I will just find this document in my category. So, you know, why we haven't started this workflow automatically, like in two previous examples, with intention to show you, you know, the document really existed when it was saved for the first time into the therefore. So basically, if we just automatically trigger this workflow, you wouldn't believe me that anything was saved here. So this hit list would be empty in that case. So what I will do now, I will just now trigger this workflow by using the manual start, and I will choose the delete document therefore web workflow. And then now if I refresh the hit list, you can see that there are no items anymore to show in the hit list. So it means that document was deleted. And as a configuration side, how that was configured, very simple again. So new call, you have seen here that it was like a post method, the URL that is used. This is basically what we are using here. As authorization here, we are using a basic type in this case because I'm using a therefore user from my environment. It can be a dedicated internal therefore user. And then you see as a body, I'm sending the doc number, and this is a main doc number from the workflow. This is basically what you also seen here in the documentation. And that is how this was configured. And last example, very interesting one, and for that one we will use a Google Vision as an API. So basically we will use their optical OCR engine for the image recognition. So driver license from I think drivers from California we are using as an example will be saved into the therefore category, and then basically the document will be sent to this external Google Vision service, and as a result they will perform like optical character recognition. The information will be extracted, and as a response we will receive that information into the therefore, and required index fields such as first name, last name, date of birth, and etc. will be automatically updated. For this example, we have to thank a lot to our colleague from the pre-sales environment, Vitor. So all credits go to him. So he knows even more details on how this example was configured. But let me firstly show you how it looks like. So imagine that we here, I will open just one folder here where I have some driver licenses, some samples of them. And this is basically an image, how it looks like. Let's say that we scan these documents. It can be even scanned like this, you know. So, and it should work. Let's save one of these documents into the category. So I will say, let's say the first one. I will choose the category that we prepared for this example, which is under this folder, US driver's license recognition. And basically what we are doing here, we will not enter any information in this step. So we will just save this scanned image into the therefore, and the workflow will be started. And as a result, the task will just send that image to the Google Vision API service, which will do the rest of the job. So basically, the information will be, OCR engine will perform the operation and extract the values, and the whole text, full text that will be recognized will be placed here. And then you will see we are using a little script that will help us to, like, by using the regular expressions, to search for a presence of the certain keywords, such as, I don't know, first name, and then next to it, it's a first name, like a Roman or Jennifer or whatever, and then what is next to the label will be placed in the matching field below. Okay, let's save this. And you see now I just saved this, and I already got all the information again in a matter of seconds. So if I open the index data dialog, basically we can see that text was fully recognized here. And as I said, like a first name, there is a script that will find, you know, like by using the regular expression, we are searching for FN and then extract next to that label and place it to the first name, and etc. for the rest of the values. So you can see very easily. In this case, we are using a new option that is available in the latest therefore versions called send document. Jen also listed a couple of real life examples, you know, on how that can be used. And I will just quickly show you the configuration side, and that will be all for today, from my side at least. And if I click on the edit button, you can see here the call. It's a post method. We are using the Vision Google APIs, images, and then there is annotate, and the key that you need to provide. This is generated when you create your account. Then the important thing is a document tab, and this is something new. Also, you know, content that you are sending. Do you want to send the first file of the document, the whole document as a PDF? You have seen the default option is do not send anything, like, you know, in the previous examples I was using that one. But in this case, also the send method that should be used, like in this case, it's a base 64 or binary or multi-form data. This again depends on the documentation, API documentation related to that app that you would like to call or service. And then here in the body, there is what needs to be sent. So you can see we are sending as a content the image. This is a document file attribute, which maps the actual therefore file that we saved, in this case, the driver license, the language that we would like to use, in this case, it's English. And then this is a type text, the detection, you know. So I think there are two attributes that can be used, and this text detection is basically operation available in Google Vision that allows you to detect text from the image that was sent. And basically that Okay, here is the script in the end also to show you that, when I receive the response, JSON, get JSON the file, full text annotation text, and then what I'm using the regular expressions, there is a function that we wrote, to find the last name, driver, license, and so on. And then in the end, you see the local variables such as last name, license, class, and so on are used here at the end, under the assignments to assign them to the matching category fields.
Brilliant.
Basically all, yeah.
We got a question just to ask to see the script. Does that answer the question, Andre? Yeah, I think that was what they wanted to see. So it looks like people are very interested in the technicalities. But we will add this example to the e-learning in some time.
So I will stop then sharing and hand it over again to my colleague Jen. Hope that examples were good enough, to understand the concept related to the REST calls.
Mm-hmm. We got several questions. I did answer some as you were presenting, but just to summarize some of the questions, because we got some very good ones. So the first one is, can you pass a value from one step of the REST call to the next? And the answer is yes. This is a brand new feature. It is so awesome. So when you have a REST call, you can create multiple REST calls within the same workflow task. And that allows you to declare variables in a first call and then pass that variable on to a second or third call within that same workflow task. And so that makes it possible to achieve very complex functions using scripting. And you can also create loops within the workflow task. And you can use scripting to achieve loops and checks, and you can also use the standard workflow functions as well to do a loop within the workflow. So one thing that's important to recognize is that you have all of the functionalities of standard workflow available to you when you use the call REST workflow task, but you also have the additional benefit of being able to use scripting to achieve very complex results. I think that's how
we solve that. Right, that multiple calls example with the QuickBooks, where we had two calls, one generate the bill to create a bill, and then another one that would add additional note to it, where we are passing one of the parameters that we received in the first call, which was a bill ID.
Yeah. And then if you want to see more detailed information on any of the scripts or any of the functions that we did, please send me or Roman an email, and we can send you the configuration or screenshots so that you can see it in detail, because I think that's going to be the best option. And REST call is available for online versions. So the functionality for Therefore Online and Therefore On-Premise is identical, more or less. And in fact, if you're using Therefore Online, often you have trouble accessing the server or database of the application. And in that case, REST call is even better than traditional integration methods. So it's definitely available for Therefore Online. So having said that, I'm going to share my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, excellent. So now I'll finish up, and then we'll check again for any more questions that we received. So as Roman showed you, it's possible to create internal REST calls within your Therefore workflow. So he showed the example of actually deleting a document using workflow. And of course, you could use that task at the end of a more complicated workflow, for example. And the whole library of REST calls is available for anyone. It's simply for Therefore Online. It's your tenant name.thereforeonline.com/theservice/v0001/rest/help. And like Roman showed you, you can then create REST calls using the library. And of course, the status code is always 200 if it's correct, and 500 would be if something has gone wrong. A quick note on integration versus REST call. So both using a REST call and standard integration, you're exchanging information forth and back. In a standard integration, like what we have with the SAP, for example, information is exchanged freely at all times. However, when you're doing a REST call, you're using the constraints of a workflow task. So that means if you're doing a REST call, you have to be aware that the REST call will be initiated from the perspective of a workflow. And so it's not, the information isn't going to be going back and forth all the time. It's just going to be how you configured the workflow. And that means that REST is more like a one-way street, whereas traditional integration methods might be more like a busy highway where information is going back and forth constantly. So the REST call function must come from therefore, or it must be initiated from therefore. And it is possible to configure loops and multiple calls from a single workflow task. The REST call is limited to that workflow environment. So that means when you're setting up a REST call function or you're discussing REST calls with your customer, you have to be careful that they understand that that's the limitation of that function so that they can have the correct expectations. So some discovery questions that you might consider discussing with your customers to see if REST calls could be helpful for them is, do you often look up information on other websites, for example, currency exchange rates? Do you update information in another application based on a therefore document? So for example, you have a workflow approval in therefore, and you decide an invoice is ready for payment. Do you then physically open up that other application and then manually update that data in your ERP system? Do you have trouble accessing the database of your ERP or CRM system? This is a particular issue oftentimes for therefore online. That indicates that a traditional integration is not going to be easy, so REST calls would be very beneficial. And then finally, do you have a process or a specific time when you look up that information? So of course, because it is a workflow, you want to have a business process where it's predictable when that information is needed so that a workflow can be created. And another thing to mention is that because REST calls are done within a workflow, it only is going to be a useful topic if your customer actually has a therefore edition that has a workflow in it. So if you do have a work group edition, for example, there is no workflow in work group edition. But nowadays, most customers are using therefore online, which does support workflow and REST calls. So hopefully many customers can benefit from this really great feature. And as you saw with Roman's great examples, REST calls are really user-friendly. They work so fast, almost completely instantaneously. So it's a really great solution to get information, exchange information between therefore and another system. And so for those of you who are technically minded and you want to learn how to configure and install REST calls on your own, check out our Workflow 3 REST course. I'm going to plug it one more time. This is an advanced course, so you do need to have finished Workflow 1 and Workflow 2 before you move on to Workflow 3. And in the Workflow 3, we show you how to configure some of the examples that we showed you today, including the currency exchange, but we also have other examples with QuickBooks and another example with holidays. And we also have a more advanced example where we show how to pass variables from another one, which was done by one of our developers, Clemens. And so that concludes the webinar for today. Thank you for your time and thank you for paying attention. I'm going to quickly go through the Q&A now and make sure that we have covered all of the questions. So, is it possible to add ERP data like deliveries, accounting data to use as data in accounts payable workflow and therefore online? Yes. So the important thing to remember is that from the therefore side, more or less everything is possible. But what really is going to affect what is possible in your REST call is what is available with that third-party service. So if you have an ERP system that supports REST calls, the first task will be to go through the documentation of that ERP system to see, do they have an API available for the data that you want, like deliveries accounting data. All right, Marco, so that's the first step, is you have to spend some time to read the documentation. Usually what works is you can put in the name of the ERP system that your customer is using and just type in REST, API documentation, or just API, and you should be able to see the documentation. If you need additional help figuring something out, contact our pre-sales team and they are happy to help. Then we have another great question. And this here is a question on a specific issue using the execute single query REST. And for this question, Lars, can you please contact pre-sales at therefore.net? The reason being is that it's a specific, like every REST call is unique to the third-party app or service that you're connecting to. And so it's impossible for me to make a blanket statement with just the information that I have here in your quick question. So please contact our pre-sales team for the specifics. All right, and then finally, actually, Roman, this is an interesting question from Zoltan. He was surprised to see that we are able to delete a document that is being actively used within the workflow. So when we did that internal REST call class, he said you can delete a document which has an active workflow, because usually that's not the case. You can't delete a document from the Therefore system if an active workflow is involved. All right. And then finally, the last question was, who should do the preparation on the third-party application? So there is no preparation on the third-party app. So it's whatever you want to connect to. Would you recommend pre-sales do this or the customer? If you are a Canon or Canon partner, it would be the job of the consultant or the implementation specialist to do it. And if you need help, then you would need to contact our pre-sales team. And of course, the complexity and the time needed to create a REST call is going to vary considerably. Some of the REST calls that we showed today, like the currency exchange, literally takes less than 10 minutes to configure. It's really simple, whereas you can have some very complex REST calls with ERP systems that are doing incredibly advanced things that could take many hours to several days. So truly the complexity and the amount of work required is going to vary tremendously. And so it's really important to have that conversation to understand what are the objectives and is what you're trying to achieve, is that within your skill set, or do you need to look to Therefore pre-sales team for help? I think that's the best way to answer that. Anyways, I think we answered all of the other questions. Some of them were just comments here, but again, thank you so much for participating in the webinar with us, and have a really great day. And again, if you do have any questions, reach out to Roman or myself at media@therefore.net. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.